Hi, everybody, and welcome to Hell is for Children. This show is on every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 2100 hours Central European Time. And my name is Geerte Frenken, and this show is all about the topic of protective mothers and their children. So, what's a protective mother? A protective mother tries to protect her child or children from their abusive father by many means necessary, which is an uphill battle in today's global corrupt family court system that thrives on paternal entitlement. And I'll start the show with a court watch that I have going on for protective mother Christy McLaren. Let me share my screen here so you know where to find it. It's right here on Facebook. And it's going to be on Monday, December 19th at 2 p.m. at the Jackson County Courthouse in Oregon. And you might all remember the show that I did with Christy McLaren. If you want to find out the details of her case is very similar to mine. If you go to CCN Media, Hell is for Children, Geerte Frenken talks to Christy McLaren. There's the 2-hour interview I did with Christy McLaren. So please support her and show up, everybody, at the Jackson County Courthouse in Medford, Oregon, please, on Monday, December 19th at 2 p.m. And another announcement that I wanted to make is to please donate to keep the show on the air. On the GoFundMe, Hell is for Children, you can make your donation. It costs about $1,200 to keep the show on the air every year, so your donations help to keep the program going. All right, and without further ado, I want to introduce you to protective mother Donna McCracken, who lost custody and contact with her daughter to her self-admitted child-abusing ex. And when her daughter called her on the phone, Donna was slammed with contempt, and her daughter was threatened with threat therapy. So, welcome to Hell is for Children, Donna.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for coming on the show. Can you share with the audience how you got to be a protective mother?
Yes, I filed for divorce in 2012, and my daughter started out by not wanting to go with her father, and things came up in counseling that basically he was being physically and violently abusive with Emily, and so she was given mandatory visitation with her dad, but it was supervised. The judge allotted him 9 visits that Emily went on during our 5-year divorce, and they didn't go well. She went with one person, and that didn't turn out well, and then from there on, we had trouble with her having a relationship with them. The relationship was already pretty much strained before the divorce, and when we split, she at that point didn't want to go with him based on their relationship. And
but at this point, you still had custody of her?
Yes, I do. I have custody pretty much through the whole entire divorce. My problem is that we litigated not in the superior court. He talked me into, or tricked me into, going to private mediation. And usually that is used for corporations to mediate lawsuits and such, but they're being used more frequently, especially if the husbands have a lot of money. They're able to control situations, the money, the kids that way, because once a judgment's been ordered by, like Judge Weinberg, he's able to put that in as a judgment. The Superior Court sees nothing wrong with it. It's really hard to get out from underneath a private mediating judge. He's considered retired, but he still has to, he's mandated, obviously, by the law to, follow judicial canons. The California law is pretty easy to read. Even if you're a layman, it's 50-50 custody, it's 50-50 assets. it shouldn't be complicated. But once you decide to stipulate to a private judge, you really have no control over the situation. And really, I was trying to be cooperative. You know, I wanted the divorce to be as hospitable as possible because of Emily's issues with her father. I didn't want to look like, you know, I wasn't cooperating, or, you know, you're trying to make this harder, or you're trying to drag this out. I know I've heard, many times about divorces taking a long time in the courts, and nobody actually benefits from that. And I really wanted to get it over and done with. I really wanted that part of my life done, and for Emily to move on. And it made it
So explain to us how that works, because I've never really heard about that. So that you can have an entire mediation and an entire judgment created outside of family court.
You can, absolutely. And it's extremely prevalent. What can happen is you have to stipulate to the judge. You have to agree. The problem with that is, in agreeing to that, you cannot recuse your judge, even though you should be able to. There's some things that the judge has to do, like anything, you know, even in Superior Court, the judges should have to follow rules, but it's harder to govern them in that situation. So you stipulate, you sign, it's like a contract. On Judge Weinberg's website, he has on there like a little blurb that basically states, you know, you can agree or not agree every time you come in front of him. And mind you, to go in front of somebody like this, it's about $5,000 a day, whether you are there for 8 hours or you were there for a half day. It's $5,000. Now, we've been doing this for 5 years. I mean, you can do the math. It's a lot of money. But you stipulate to that, you have to sign contracts, you know, and then you go forward, and you're supposed to, it states in there, you're supposed to be able to, mediation, I mean, by definition, is pretty much agreeing upon. There was no, we didn't agree upon anything. It was pretty much dictated from the other side. Opposing counsel pretty much ran this courtroom, and he has a huge relationship with this judge. In part of the certification process, when you stipulate to a private mediating retired judge, and his title really is retired temporary commissioner. So even in that title, he doesn't have the force really of a specific judge like in the Superior Court, Appellate Court, Supreme Court. He's temporary. His jurisdiction, he doesn't have the ability to hold you like in contempt, civil contempt. He doesn't have you, he can't do certain things. So he needs also the Superior Court to be able to do that for him. So
can't you set aside the stipulation in the Superior Court?
Should be able to. And when we, so like last year, Emily was taken from me October 20. Well, I was asked to bring her to court October 28th of 2015. Emily refused to get in the car. So I arrived without her. And when you stipulate to the judge, he has to follow the rules. There can't be, you know, attorney, they can't talk, like the opposing counsel cannot have ex parte communications with the judge. Similar, I mean, really the laws are the same, but it's harder to mandate this because there's really no eyes on them. You know, they're doing their own little thing. So what happens is, we had stated that we wanted to recuse the judge. We had stated that we felt that he did not give us information prior to stipulating and having him signed in on as the judge, meaning that he would have had to divulge to us that 95% of his cases were with opposing counsel Tom Tuttle of Seastrom and Seastrom. He didn't do that. And when you don't do that, and by law, even in a Superior Court, a judge needs to do that. A clerk would have to do that. You know, opposing counsel, your counsel, when they come forward, if they say there's a conflict of interest here, or this isn't, you know, I can't have this judge because I know him through a cousin, whatever it is, you have to recuse yourself. You have to step down and find somebody else. He did not tell us that 95% of his cases were in front of this judge. He also didn't say that the majority of his cases were given for opposing counsel. He sided on the side of the men. I know that sounds terrible because there are, men out there that this is happening to as well. But the majority of his cases, he does not like women. He's known for that. So when he stipulated in, he would have had to say that. He would have had to say that he not only goes to seminars with this attorney, but that they actually co-host seminars together. That's a conflict of interest. He didn't state that, opposing counsel and his law firm, Seastrom and Seastrom, gave this judge an award for Judge of the Year. There's a lot of conflicts there. Had he said to me, I want to make you aware, which is part of his job as any judge, actually, on any panel. This is our conflicts. I want you to know about this before I do my certification to stipulate in as your judge. Are you okay with this? And if you are okay with this, you need to sign a waiver waiving your rights that you know this. That didn't happen. So, and if I wasn't okay with that, he would have said, I'm sorry, I can't do this case then. None of that happened. And what happened last December is my attorney came in and as an emergency after Emily was basically medically kidnapped from me, or whatever you want to take, whatever you want to say, stolen, whatever it is. We came in and had a writ written up based on, we asked the judge first to recuse himself. And when a judge is asked to recuse himself, they have to give you an answer. It can be yes or no, and they don't have to attach a verified answer to it. But he went ahead and did that because I think he knew she's not going anywhere with this. I have control of this. So basically he said, no, I'm not going to recuse myself. I'm not stepping down from this case. And in his verified answer, he basically stated, it's not because I'm biased. And we said, well, in our recusal to ask you to step down, we didn't say you were biased. We stated that you did not divulge this information that's pretty pertinent to a case going forward. I would have liked to know that information. How many cases has he won in front of you with the father? And that's important because going forward, I think I would have said, no, I think that's kind of weird. You're meshing parties there a little bit, just like anything else. So he didn't do that. So then what we did is we went to the appellate court and we had a writ done and basically said, we're not saying he's biased. What we're saying is that he didn't divulge this in a certification. And that's against the law. You can't do something like that. Well, the appellate court came back, unfortunately, and said, no, sorry, we're not going to grant you that. And it's unfortunate because that was aside from Emily already being taken, it put into a spiral of an effect of basically destroying my life. I was then...
Well, let's go back a little bit because what was drawn up in this stipulated agreement? We can't call it an agreement.
That we would agree to mediate this divorce, that my husband, our ex-husband, had come to me and said, Donna, we don't want this in the limelight of everything. He's a multimillionaire. And we do not want to draw this out. You want to be fiscally responsible, honey. Just sign on this judge. And I remember being at the courthouse in December of 2012 with my first attorney and had 11. And my first attorney and him saying to me, my husband had asked for an ex-party emergency order to take Emily out of my care. And of course, the judge at the time was Judge Larsh. He said, absolutely not. I'm not granting you this. This is ridiculous. Now, mind you, if you back up a little bit, I had already filed a restraining order prior to filing the divorce. I didn't serve it upon him because he threatened me. And, I'd never been divorced before. I never had gone through these proceedings. I was trying to cooperate. So when we were at the courthouse and my attorney said to me, just sign this. They want to stipulate to a private judge. And I said, why? Why is it so urgent that we do that? It's Christmas time. That makes me nervous. And he's like, just sign, basically he'll take everything away from you if you don't do it. And so I sat there and I thought to myself, okay, I'm trying to look cooperative again. I'm trying to make this easy. I don't want to look like the vindictive ex-wife that is trying to, be controlling or not, I'm unhappy that we're separating, so I'm trying to make problems. So of course, again, I agree. I said, okay. And I had said to my attorney at the time, you guys live on the same street. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, you and opposing counsel live on the same street. That bothers me that you're so easily, readily agreeing to mediating in front of a private judge. It bothers me. That was my first little.
That was your gut instinct.
It was, right? And I didn't listen to it. And he says, oh, come on, Donna, it's no big deal. I said, yeah, well, I think it's odd that I've heard over and over again, time and time, about how much money the family courts make on divorces. And it's, that's great that you live down the street, but I don't want any kind of, intermeshing of anything. I want you to be my attorney. I don't want you to go back and say, well, I got her. And that's pretty much what I felt. I felt he was only with me for 3 months and I fired him. I said, I have a problem trusting you with opposing counsel. You're not saying anything to me to protect me. And my dad was a family law attorney when he was alive. And you don't, while you can be nice to the opposing counsel, you don't, you're not more cooperative with them than you are with your client. You've hired an attorney to protect your rights and to pretty much fight for you. And it shouldn't even be a fight, really. It should be that, you get through the divorce and you go your separate ways and you live your life, and it should be simple. It's relatively simple if you look at divorcing. It should be assets, child custody, and how many years you're married. And it's easy, it's an equation, but it's not easy. And finding that out, that it's extremely prevalent, not only where I live in Orange County, California, it's prevalent everywhere. It's like everyone forgets about the families and how they're affected. And then if there's any kind of child abuse, anything that you were raised to believe, this is good, this is bad, everything that you were raised to believe, the judicial system does this, these attorneys protect you, police do this, it's completely the opposite. And if I, like when you said, I've never heard of that before, I can't tell you how many people said to me, what's private mediation? What's private court? Well, it's really for multimillionaires or somebody that can afford to pay for a verdict. Pretty much, you tell them what you want, and you get what you want. They're selling verdicts. I know, as much as people don't want to believe that. I mean, I lived it, and it is what it is. It's something that needs to be turned around, and people.
So what was stipulated in this agreement? Let's go to that. Did you stipulate it to 50-50, or did the father get full custody, or did you ask for full custody? Or
we didn't stipulate to that right away. All we stipulated to was that we would mediate the divorce like we would in court, and that they literally had a trial for finances and a trial for custody. But it really wasn't a trial for custody or a trial for financial, because it didn't matter what my side put on or what they would say, okay, this isn't right. That judge was completely biased. And it's funny that that was his first reaction, to say, well, I'm not biased. Well, usually when someone says that, they are, right? I mean, it is what it is, right? So you stipulate to just agree to different terms, but there was no agreeing to anything. I mean, the judge basically said to me, I've come to the conclusion after 10 and a half years, you have no community interest in this marriage. California is 50-50. After 10 years, it's usually you are paid, for life. And the child, at the time we divorced, had just turned 9. There were a lot of red flags there. And I remember everyone saying to me, it's your attorney. You don't have a good attorney. And so I'd fire the attorney. And, here I'm listening to people that have no idea what they're talking about, but you're pretty much desperate at that point, right? You want to just get through it. And you're like, yeah, I need to hire one that's better than that. I had top lawyers on my case that would say to me when they came on the case, why did you stipulate to Weinberg? And I'm like, looked at him, I'm like, is he corrupt? Oh, I would never stipulate to him. I had a guy, His name was John Schilling, and he has been practicing for probably over 40 years. He's a very good family law attorney, very well known. And I remember sitting in his office, and he said to me, "Why did you stipulate to Weinberg? He hates women." And my eyes got big, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, what did I just do?" And he says, "I'm going to tell you, there was 2 cases." I said to him, "Well, when was the last time you were in front of him?" He goes, "Quite frankly, it's been a while." And I said, "Why is that?" And he says, "I don't trust him." I said, "You don't trust him?" And he said, "No, there was 2 cases that I had. I'm a very experienced lawyer. You pretty much at that point know where you're going to fall. You have the finances. You have a good mom or a bad mom or a bad dad or a good dad. You have all those things in the equation, and you pretty much know where you're going to fall." And he said, on those 2 different divorces in front of him, he fell so far out the parameters that I could never trust him because, I give him the evidence, the other side gives them their evidence, and it's pretty black and white. And he fared for the other side, which would have been Tom Tuttle. And he said, "I really don't trust him. I wish you would have come to me first. I would have told you not to stipulate to him."
But you know what? This is one of the things that you're bringing up that's really important, because when you're first introduced into this family court and this private court, whenever you go into a custody situation for the first time, you have no knowledge of this. It's not like you can get a flyer that says like, "Don't do this and do that."
Right. And even though it's interesting. My dad was a family law attorney, corporate. And even though, I worked for him quite a bit, I really didn't, delve into that because, your mind doesn't go to, "Oh God, what happens if I ever get a divorce? Hey Dad, what happens if I do this?" You don't ask those questions. And it's too bad they don't school you on this because
maybe we should write a manual.
It would be awesome. I know that, some things like that are going on, unfortunately. And I don't like to target fathers because I do know that there are very good fathers out there. But it seems as though a lot of the fathers are being coached. And, if they want something, I know that in the past, fathers haven't gotten a great deal of custody. I get that. But I also do understand that, children need their moms, and they shouldn't be completely cut out of their lives. Now, you have, moms that are out there that are drug addicted, or there's massive issues with them. Are they in the best interest of the child? Probably not, but it's still their mom. But I don't have any of those issues. I'm a good mom. My kids both have said, anything you've done in your life, the best thing you did was be a mom. And sadly, Emily, I haven't seen Emily in a year and 42 days. And she suffers because of it. Her big brother suffers because of it. Nobody on my side of the family is allowed to see her. And, they say, do you believe in parent alienation? I do. But in my case, it was used against me. I was falsely accused of it. So, I'm in a fine line because I am being alienated from her. I'm deprived from her. And there is that stigma out there with, don't use that word. Then you side with the other side, but basically it is what it is. She's been stolen from me, I believe. She's been kidnapped from me, I believe. And she doesn't get a say. She doesn't get to say. She's 13. She doesn't have a say. The judge basically told me when I asked for minors counsel 3 separate times on the record, no, she doesn't get to say. It's not up to what Emily wants. I said, but the reason why Emily has the issues with their father, it is up to Emily. Emily wants a safe haven. Emily wants to feel safe. And I remember when she went to her first psychologist, we had split, and it was not a good split. He was, that's why I filed the restraining order. It was quite scary. There were issues with the kids and he, not so much with me. There were threats all the time, but more with the kids. And she said to the psychologist, I don't want to be with my father. And I remember it was a Sunday. We were at counseling, and I couldn't get them out of the car. And so I had to call the counselor downstairs. And she said, what is the problem? Why are you giving your mom a hard time? It's already a very hard time for all of you. You need to get out of the car and you need to come up for counseling. And so she like kind of looked at me and smiled, and they marched herself up. You could tell they were mad. And so she said, well, we normally don't do this, but I want to fix this issue before we go forward into your individual meetings. I want you all to come in. And so she says, well, I can tell obviously that there's something bothering you guys, and who wants to go first? And Emily piped up. She's kind of like a little firecracker. And she's like, she didn't ask. And the doctor, I think she's like a therapist, her name is Bridget, said, well, Emily, what do you mean she didn't ask? She didn't ask if we wanted them to come or not. And I was still at that point trying to facilitate a relationship between her and her father, even though she would say, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I said, Emily, please just give him a chance. You know, he just wants to have time with you. Why would I want to go with somebody who's abusive with me? And I'd say, you know, at that point, I believed her, but maybe I was in denial about it. So I kept pushing it. I kept pushing, you need to go with him. He just wants to spend time with you. You'll just go to like dinner. You'll just go to do this. And I'll come pick you up. At that point, she wouldn't get in the car with him. And usually that's a red flag, obviously, when a kid doesn't want to get in the car with somebody else, but I kept pushing it. And when we were at this meeting, she said she didn't ask us if we wanted him to come. We were going to see a show, and he had given us the tickets to go. And she said, why is that a problem? She goes, it's a problem because I don't want to be around him. And she said, Emily, do you feel safe around your dad? And she said, no. And she said, do you feel safe around your dad when your mom's there? Yes. And then she said, do you feel safe? Do you think your mom's safe when she's with your dad? And she said, no. And I started to cry because I thought, that's sad that she doesn't think I'm safe, but that she thinks she's safe when I'm there. And she turned to my son and pretty much asked him the same questions. And he said the same thing. And she looked at me, she goes, these children can't be around him. And I said, you don't understand. This was probably like December of 2012. I said, you don't understand. He's going to go after me for parent alienation. He already told me he was if I didn't cooperate. And you don't understand. He did it to his first wife. He wasn't successful with her. But he's going to do it with me. And he promised me if I didn't keep my mouth shut and if I didn't go along, then I'd lose everything. I'd lose my kids. I'd lose my homes. I'd lose everything. I wouldn't get anything. And so at that point, you know, I was scared. And I said, you need to write the court a letter stating what's happened in this meeting. And she goes, oh, I don't like to get involved. And I said, what do you mean you don't like to get involved? You're involved. You're their counselor. You were already my son's counselor because there was some issues with him and I couldn't figure out what it was. And come to find out it was because he was being abusive with my son. My son was shutting down and I couldn't figure it out. So I started having him go to a counselor. He's mildly autistic and he was 15, 16 at the time. And I thought, okay, maybe it's hormonal, maybe it's just being a boy. I didn't know. And Michael come forward later and said, Mom, if we told you anything, he used to threaten us and say he'd take us away from you, he'd kick you out of the house, you'd be homeless, and you'd have nothing. And I said, oh, he can't do that. But why wouldn't you have told me that? And he said, we're scared of him. So I pretty much said to the lady, I need you to write that down and send that to my attorney. I need this to be documented. She goes, I'm not going to be involved. I said, so you're going to let him get away with threatening my children, basically, because you don't want to get involved, but that's what you do. She went and do it. And my ex-husband had called me maybe a week later and said, I'm paying the bill now for the psychologist and she's going to check in with me now. And I said, well, I would prefer to pay her because I don't think it's a good idea that you pay her and you check in. You don't need to check in. I don't check in. All I do is drive them there and take them home. Unless we're having a family issue, I rarely go in. If that's their counselor, I do not get involved in what they're telling her. This is to help them therapeutically get through this divorce and come out on the other end healthy. You don't need to manage anything with the psychologist. And he's like, I will. And I remember we went to breakfast with them. I still would have breakfast with him with the kids. I'd make them go. They were pissed off at me. And he'd say to them when he sat down with them, by the way, I talked to your counselor. And they looked at me like, oh, great. Now he's going to control this. And
yeah. Because they can't say anything anymore then.
Yeah, nope. And then they basically said, what's the point of us going? You don't understand, Mom. He's got a lot of power. And I would look at him and say, you don't understand. There are laws. There are laws and rules that he has to follow.
Yeah.
And and Emily said, Mom, you don't understand. Hi, Pen. You don't understand. He's gonna be able to do it. And I would look at her thinking, what is she talking about? But she, kids know. And I was in denial. I kept thinking, I still loved him. I kept trying to think, I'm gonna make this work to be 50-50 co-parenting. Okay, so he's been a little brash with them. Really still not understanding, the severity of the abuse. And I don't know that it even would have mattered, quite frankly, if I didn't ever get it. I know that once there's abuse that's claimed in the court in a divorce, domestic violence, child abuse, the father, because of Bill Clinton writing an initiative on father's rights, and mind you, I know they have that right to have their child in their life. But my thing is always, do they have that right when they're physically and violently abusive with their children? Do they have that right if they sexually abuse their children? I would say the normal mind would go to, I don't think so.
No, they should go to criminal courts, right?
I think that our world is so upside down right now. I think it's an epidemic. And someone had said to me, I don't know how you do this day to day. And I said, I'm going to be part of one of those moms that's going to make a difference for the other moms that have been beaten or silenced, gag orders. I'm going to be part of that. I'm going to make a difference. Someone has to stand up to the corruption. Someone has to make it to where our kids believe that the system's there and in place for a reason. And it's unfortunate. It's about money right now, and greed and power, really. And that goes to, domestic violence by proxy, which is, this case is a classic case of that. And it's unfortunate, but, when the kids suffer, I don't think there's one mom out there or one dad out there that truly wants their children to suffer because they couldn't get along. And when you throw in abuse or domestic violence, it should be a pretty cut and dry situation. You raise your kids to say, this is right, this is wrong. When they get in trouble at school, they do something wrong at school, they get in trouble. I remember Emily saying to the reunification counselor in the beginning, he said to her, do you know the difference between right and wrong? And Emily said, yeah, when you do something wrong, there's severe consequences. And he said, severe. And she said, yeah, my mom taught me that. And he said, well, you do realize, Emily, that if you don't go with your father and you don't spend the time with your father, you will not only not be a successful person, you will delve into drugs, you'll have sex at an early age. And my mouth, I was sitting there with my ex-husband and Emily and Dr. Wiley Johnson that said that to her. My mouth dropped open, and I hear moms say this all the time. When my mouth dropped open, I'm like, I know, right? And during their cases. And I had to pick it back up, and I was like, and I didn't say anything. And she says, she was 10 at the time. She says, don't you think, Dr. Wiley Johnson, that's pretty irresponsible to say to a 10-year-old? And I looked over at her
Love it.
and I wanted to be her biggest cheerleader, but of course, you can't do that. So I kind of just like, and he said, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, I've learned about consequences between good and bad. And she said, I don't believe, why would that change my morals and my values that my mom taught me? Why? She goes, so basically what you want me to do is you want me to go with someone who's abusive to me, who doesn't treat me right, who ignored me my whole life when he was at home. And you're basically saying that I'm going to be unsuccessful if I don't have my dad in my life. And he says, that's right. And she says, well, you're wrong. The president of the United States didn't have his father in his life, and he's the president of the United States. And
awesome answer. Yeah.
and she came up with a couple other ones. I believe it was Tom Cruise and I think Julia. But she said, those people are successful. What do you measure success at? She's extremely bright. And so I just sat there going, okay, so, but I've also found out in divorces like this, if the child is smarter and above average and stands their ground for what they believe, they will target those children and they will say that they were coached. And they will say, oh, definite parent alienation going on there. You couldn't coach my kids if you tried. My kids are very independent, stubborn children, very bright kids. They see it for what it is. I sat them down when I finally figured out that we weren't going to make it work. I said, I'm so sorry this didn't work. Things have changed. People change. I'm so sorry. And Emily looked at me and she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, people change, unfortunately, and I'm sorry that we couldn't make this work. She's like, make it work. He's been like this my whole life, Mom. And I kind of like looked at her like, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is a 9-year-old. And then my son said, yeah, Mom, he's been like this since I was 5. And I'm like, so I'm living in denial, basically. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I just had a lesson by my children.
Yeah, my daughter did the same thing. I told her at some point, I said, well, maybe your dad will give up at some point. And she would just roll her eyes at me and say, don't be so naive, Mom.
Certainly no. And I have to say, the only thing that's really gotten me through this is that I know she's extremely strong. She's smart. And, when I did get to talk to her, when she called me about, 5 or 6 months ago, there's no contact order. It started out like this. It started out like they took her from me. I didn't bring her to court that day because I told her, by the way, you've got to go to court with me. She goes, now they want to talk to me? I said, yeah. She goes, well, isn't he going to be doing the ruling? And I said, yes. She's like, well, they're going to take me away from you. And I said, that is a huge possibility. She goes, on what grounds? And I said, well, they're claiming parent alienation. She goes, so because my dad was abusive with me and I don't feel safe with them and I don't want to go with them, but I was going on dinners with them because he doesn't get his way, he's having a tantrum and he's going to take me away from you. And I said, well, you can look at it that way. And I'm really careful what I say to Emily because I said, if that's how you feel, I remember saying to my psychologist through this whole thing, I don't know sometimes what to say to her because she's so smart. I don't know what to say to her. And she goes, sometimes you just have to tell them, if that's how you feel, I'm really, that's your feelings. I can't change that. So you have to be really careful when you're talking to kids because you can be labeled an alienator. And you can be, and I do realize that they do exist. My brother's ex-wife is truly an alienating mother. And I get that. And there are fathers that do it. I get it. But to use a false allegation to get what you want to destroy another person on top of everything else, to me, it's criminal. There should, at the end of this, I do believe I will go after him criminally. He has destroyed our lives. He's destroyed a family. I mean, it was already broken. And then he chose to, further destroy it by basically taking her away and taking her away from her brother. And I remember having to hand her over. We went underground for 8 days. When she refused to go to court, she said, put me in a safe house the night before. I said, oh, Emma, She's like, I'm not going. I will run away tonight when you're sleeping. I will not go. I'm not going with him. And I said, okay. And one of my girlfriends said, you're going to need to find a private safe house, or because if you do one that's government funded, legally they have to give you up. So I said, okay. So I put her in a safe house, showed up at court on October 28th of 2015. And there were guys in the courtroom. And you have to remember, this is like a commercial building. There were guys, and then they have like big conference room, which would be their courtroom. And they had guys in there with guns. They had a transport company because he claimed parent alienation. And once they get parent alienation, which is sometimes very hard to get in California courts, but once you get it, the diagnosis, you can ask for a reunification program. And a reunification program, a lot of people don't understand what these are. The specific one that we were told about was Family Bridges, Dr. Randy Rand. And I use that term lightly. And I use the term lightly because his license was taken away from him by the court. And he is practicing without a license right now. And there's other ones. He had one that was called Rachel's Foundation that is horrible. It was closed down. There's another one that Dorsey Pruder runs, which is horrible, by another doctor by the name of Dr. Childress. They all kind of work together. And these programs cost about $40,000 for 4 days. So my husband paid, in addition to everything else that he was paying, $40,000 for Family Bridges. When it was brought up in court by the judge said to my attorney and myself, are you aware of the background of Family Bridges and Dr. Randy Rand? And we both shook our head, no, we're not. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, he's actually seeing what this is all about. He's going to finally rule in my favor. And I thought, my attorney gave me a thumbs up underneath the table. And I thought to myself, this guy actually does have a conscience, right? He said, this doctor doesn't have his license anymore. It was taken away by the court. And I said, I kind of was surprised. And my husband on the other side said, we still want to go forward with that. And I was like, my mouth dropped open. I was like, you've got to be kidding me right now. So I didn't know that much about it. I researched it. He works with a company by the name Bill Lane and Associates. They are a transportation company that will literally hijack your child, handcuff them, put bags over their heads, and take them from you in a very distressing way, and take them that way. So I knew when I showed up to the day in court, if I had Emily, this is how she was going to be ripped out from me. And Bill Lane, his background, he's been arrested 3 separate times. He was a drug addict, a heroin drug addict back in the day. And this is a guy who transports children. And there are all kinds of things that are related to them that people just don't know about. And I always say that this happened to me for a reason, because it's connected me with some amazing people. But when I knew that these people were going to be involved in taking Emily from me that way, when she said, please hide me, I thought to myself, I'm her mother. I'm her protector. I'm not going to allow her to be ripped from my arms that way. It'll be on my terms, even if that's against the law from the order that was, given me to bring her to court that day. So we arrive in court, and everyone's in there, and the judge kind of looks at me like, where's Emily? And he says, Mrs. McCracken Dobson, where's your child? Did you not get my my order that she was ordered to come into court today? I said, yes, I did actually. And I didn't bring her. She's not in here right now, but she's out in the parking lot. I said, why would she be in the parking lot? And he said, is she here on the premises? I said, no, she's not. I said, and I looked over because I was scripted to say this in court by 2 women attorneys that wouldn't put their name and come into court that day for me for fear of retaliation. But they told me, listen, when you get there, make sure there's a court reporter. make sure you ask, is this on the record? And I said, okay, because apparently David Weinberg, Judge David Weinberg, doesn't use transcripts a lot because, you know, there's a paper trail. So I looked over at the court reporter. I said, are we on the record? She said, we are. I said, I'd like to make a record. I'd like to state that I did not bring Emily to court today. She told me to give you a message. And the judge looked up at me and said, what's the message? And I said, she told me to tell you that you violated her civil rights and her constitutional rights, that I had asked 3 separate times on the record for minors counsel, and you denied that. She has that right as a person. And he looked at me, he goes, so you didn't bring her? I said, no, I did not. Well, where is she? Well, she's at a safe house. I'd like the name, address, and a contact there. I said, oh, I can't give you that. Then she wouldn't be safe. And he said, do you understand? I said, I understand. And he said, do you understand what civil contempt is? And I said, I understand what civil contempt is, and I'm fully aware of what criminal contempt is. And I have been told that this is not within your jurisdiction as a temporary private judge. You can't hold me in either. He took off his glasses. And I think that if nobody else was in that room, I wouldn't be alive today to talk to you. I think that I have challenged this judge throughout this whole thing. Quite honestly, I abide by the rules. I was raised and reared to follow the rules in life. But with that, I don't follow the rules when my rights are being taken away. As an American citizen, you have certain rights in this world given to you by the Constitution, civil rights, everything. And I can tell you that all of them, including my kids, have been violated through this whole process, that he doesn't follow the rules. And so he looked pissed. And my attorney had said, I've got to take my name off the case right there in court. And I said, go for it. Go for it. I think that's great. And I had another attorney standing by downstairs. And when I looked around, I had a girlfriend there. I looked around, there was a gentleman with a gun, and he had brushed his jacket back so that I could see it, as though that was going to scare me, right? I don't scare easily. I don't care. I know what my rights are. And I looked over and I said, you don't scare me. And the judge says, we're going to take a quick recess. And I thought, oh, thank God. So I called my attorney downstairs and I said, you need to come up. There's a guy up here with a gun. I saw a van in the parking lot. I'm not bringing her in. I'm not bringing her in, and I'm not staying. And so she came up. She said she was subbing in. They didn't pay any attention to that. They were going to do whatever they were going to do. And when I went in the other room to talk to her, I said, if I go back in there, I'm going to have a massive heart attack. I already know they're going to take her from me, but I don't want to sit there and listen to it. I'm going to have a massive heart attack. And I said, you know what? I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. She's like, okay, take your time. I wasn't going to the bathroom. I was getting the hell out of there. And I had already had my bags packed. I didn't care anymore about the stuff that was in my house or my things. At that point, I think any mother says to herself, I'm not handing my kid over to an abuser. I don't care if I have to lose everything, right? So I passed the judge in the hall, and he's like 6, I'm really tiny, 5'1" on a good day. And that day I felt 6'5". He is about 6'4". He's a big guy. He's a big, tall judge. And I passed him by the stairwell, and he looked at me and smiled and nodded. And I thought, you're an asshole, excuse my French, but I was pissed. And I thought to myself, you're smiling at me and you know you're going to take my daughter. So I smiled back at him like, I got you. And he walked around the corner, and I literally, in Stiletto Hills, by the way, ran down 4 flights of stairs and got out of there, got to my car, walked by the transport team. There was a whole nother team to extract her in a whole nother room. They're paid between $12,000 and $15,000 to extract, and then Family Bridges is $40,000. Got in my car, My girlfriend called me. I said, I'm turning off my phone right now. Get out of there right now. I don't want them following you. Get out. I'm going home. My bags are already at a different location. I've got burner phones and I'm not turning these ones on. They'll track me. And during my whole entire divorce, I mean, he had people following me, harassing me. I had to put in a whole surveillance system in our home. You know, that's what abusers do, though, right? They harass you, they stalk you until you break. I remember him saying to me, maybe 2 weeks prior to that, I'm not like you. I can't continue fighting, Donna. And I said, I don't believe you. I don't believe you because you wouldn't have taken it this far. I don't believe you. So got in my car, called the person that had Emily. And I remember saying this to the judge had said to me, well, when everything's done and you are allowed to have Emily back, how are you going to get in contact with her? I said, I have my ways, but I'm not giving you the information. And I don't have to give you it because it's not federally funded by the government. It's a private house. And he was mad. He was mad because I didn't have to give him it. I was smart enough. When you're running, you don't go to a federally protected program. You can't. They have to give you up. So I got in the car, went and met with Emma. I picked up my son. I think they didn't think that I left. I think they thought I was still in the restroom. So I start. I got a head start and I made it home. I stopped at Staples and got 2 burner phones with cash. Bought a whole bunch of, I had people that, you know, I was married to a multimillionaire, so I had cash available to me at that time. And I had employees that worked for me and they helped me. Extremely loyal, you know, they've been with me for a long time. And I was able to stay hidden for 8 days. It seemed like the longest 8 days of my life. But then when I finally came forward, because he'd gotten a message to one of my girlfriends basically stating the district attorney's office was going to walk in a felony child abduction warrant for your arrest, not knowing that wasn't true because I hadn't crossed state line. He couldn't actually officially do that. But then I stopped to think about it and thought he probably can do that because our district attorney, Tony Rakakis, is embroiled in a lot of things right now with corruption.
They all live on the same street.
They really do live all on the same street, quite frankly. They're patting each other's pockets. I mean, you know, it's disgusting in a sense because I remember my dad when he was alive and he'd say, my dad was a great attorney. He would say, well, I'd say, Dad, do you know this person? Yeah. I said, oh, you're pretty important. You know, it's who you know, Dad. And it is who you know.
It's the good old boy network, you know?
One of the women that told me to make the record that day on the record, she said, I'm so sad you didn't get us. We would have never signed you with this judge. He's part of the good old boys network. And I'm like, what is that? And one of my girlfriends said, just call it corruption because that's really what it is. And I'm like, So, you know, I've learned a lot about this. It's sad that it happens because ultimately, I think moms can fight anything. They can cry, get over it, and move on to the next day. The next day if they have to cry. But the kids are scarred. It affects them. My daughter said to me when she called me, I feel so, Mommy, I love you, but I feel so abandoned by you. And I said, oh, little bug. I said, remember I told you that they were going to try to brainwash you. And she said, yeah, I know. And if I didn't cooperate, I would get in a lot of trouble. They told me after, if I ever talked to you or tried to reach out to you, that Daddy would put you in jail. And I said, he did, huh? And she said, remember back when I told you, he said he was going to take everything from you? He was going to take your freedom too.
Wow, and that out of the mouth of your own daughter.
Yeah. So, so many things have happened in this case that are bad. You know, she got a phone and called me, and she.
Well, let's go back to when she was taken.
Okay. So she was taken. What a nightmare. So I got a call one of my girlfriends met me at the house and said, your husband's just contacted me and they're going to walk in a felony child abduction warrant. And I remember saying, Emily's like, don't turn me over. Don't, Mom, please don't turn me over. Let's just run. We'll just run. And I said, Emily, I can't help you if they catch me and they put me in jail. I'm worthless to you. She's like, the problem is you follow the rules and Daddy doesn't. I said, Emily, I am no good to you in jail. I've never been arrested. I've never done anything bad. I've gotten a speeding ticket. I said, but I've never done anything bad. Mommy follows the rules. I got to bring you in. I don't want to go in. I said, I understand that, but it's for only a little bit of time. They're saying 90 days to this reunification program. And she's like, what's that? I said, I don't know what I have to do. I just know I have to do something. And so I decided to have it videotaped. I videotaped me handing her over. And I probably had that videotape. I know right now it's not able to be viewed. I had that on me for a long time until it was uploaded. I'd never watched it. And I watched it, and it was horrific to watch because Emily's in the video basically saying, and he's lying in it because my mother was there, a friend was there. He is like a full-blown sheriff team there with guns and hiding. I mean, I knew where they were. There's a school bus, you know, at 8:45 at night in front of Trader Joe's and no one's in it. You know, I know what they were doing. They had a whole entire, pretty much SWAT team there. He had told them that I have guns, so they had brought guns, a task team, if you will. And she basically says to her dad in it, I said, you're just going to go spend some time. Daddy really misses you. He loves you. He just wants to, and this has been my whole thing all along. I have always told her, like in the counseling sessions and everything, Emily, he just wants to, he wants you to forgive him and he wants you to move on and he wants a relationship with you. That was my whole entire thing the whole time. And maybe you can do it in baby steps and do this, but you need to try to have a relationship with your father. She goes, I don't understand why you say that. You know who he is. You know, not trying to be labeled, obviously, right? So going back to that night, she says to him in the parking lot, why would a judge do this? Why would he want me to do this? Why would he? I don't understand. And my ex-husband's standing there, and my mom's trying to coax her to get in the car with this stranger because the transport team is there, and she doesn't want to go. She's like, I don't know who those people are. I said, well, Daddy's going to drive with you. You're going to be okay. And I don't want to go. I said, I know. And it's a pretty long video. It's actually a sad video to watch. But basically they take her and he drives her back to his house, which is just right around the corner from my house. And then he lets these people take her. And my daughter doesn't want to go. And he doesn't go in the car with her. And I didn't think she'd do this, but in hindsight, I'm so happy she did because it shows that she's kind of got a fire in her. And she didn't just willingly go, but she took off on foot. And she started to run, and they eventually caught up with her and they dragged her back. Literally, she said, they dragged me back into the vehicle, Mommy, and told me that they would tie me down and restrain me if I didn't stay in the car. And at that point, I was scared of what they'd do to me. And I said, I'm glad that you cooperated because I really don't want, anything to happen to you. There's been horror stories about family bridges, highway to recover, whatever the other highway reunification, all the horror stories of the abuse that happens if the children don't cooperate. So I'm glad she did that. She said that there were, it's ran out of hotels because this doctor doesn't have a license, so he can't practice in a building. And she happened to be in a hotel up in Northern California. Randy Rand lives in Mill Valley, and he basically owns Mill Valley in the sense of he's got sheriffs in his back pocket, believe it or not. He's got everybody there that he needs. He's protected pretty much. But he runs his stuff there and a couple other places around different states, and he will transport people via airplane or via road. If it's a longer trip, they go by airplane. And I had heard about a story through another person that I know who was their kid was taken, and she was about 14. And when she got up to the TSA, we're raising strong girls. I want everyone to know that we're raising like strong girls to be strong women. His daughter told the TSA agent she had a bomb in her shoe, so they couldn't fly. So like these girls know they're being taken from the protective parent, and they're trying everything they can to get away. They know right from wrong. The judges know right from wrong. The attorneys know, but they're so engrossed in the money, you know, that they don't care. They don't have consciences at this point, I don't believe. So she was taken to this hotel for 4 days. And then after they do the 4 days of intense therapy, whatever that means, and they threaten her and they tell her every day, your mom is a very bad mom. You can't see your mom. She's a bad mom. They pretty much try to brainwash them. They do threat therapy where they'll threaten them. If you contact your parent, you contact a friend that can contact your parent, she will go to jail. We will put her in prison. It's threat therapy. And it's, I believe it's child abuse, you know, because you're threatening a kid who really wants just to reach out to their protective parent or their safe parent. But, you know, people are being damaged, kids are being damaged, and there's a lot of them that we don't even know about. And this has been going on for years. I want to say more than 20 years. So she goes to her 4-day reunification, and then they're told to go on a 7-day vacation with the abusive parent or the parent who's gotten parent alienation diagnosis. And then after that, they integrate back into their family with the father or the mother, whoever has them. And then there's a protocol that they follow. You can't talk to the other parent for 90 days. And in the order, it basically said she couldn't have any contact with me or any third party that I knew, her brother, her grandma, nobody. She had no contact for 90 days. And in that order, it basically said no contact for 90 days. Donna needs to see a psychologist 2 times a week. That was the verbiage. We go back after 90 days, which seems like an eternity for me. Eternity, 90 days, right? And we go into court, and I'm so happy because I've done what I'm supposed to do. I actually, the night that I'd given her up, I called my psychologist and said, this is what they want me to do. It's twice a week for 2 hours total. Do you have the time I need to have you do it? So I set it up that night, actually, the night that I'm going to hand her over, because I'm so willing to just do what they want me to do. I want to cooperate. And she's like, anything, Donna. She goes, this is ridiculous. I've been with you from the whole time. We're going to beat this. And I said, okay. And so I do my 90 days. My psychologist calls the court master who was retained by my husband. And by the way, he picked all the doctors and he paid all the doctors. Dr. Jorge Galindo is the court master. And it was his job to come in and state after a 7:30 evaluator, or a 7:30 evaluation, let me go back, a 7:30 evaluation, just so everybody knows, because it may not be the same term in other states. A 7:30 evaluation here in California is a doctor who works through divorces and states, this is what's going on in the divorce. This is what happened before they got divorced. This is what I think is in the best interest of the child. That's their job, is to figure out where the kid should be placed with what parent is safer. So Dr. Duke Bussey was chosen, and I remember that name. Anybody would remember that name if they heard it before. It's different, it's unique. I went to meet with them and I said, I have a problem with you being our 7:30 evaluator. He said, why? And I said, well, you used to work with Dr. Adams. He said, yeah. And I said, well, you did my husband's first divorce. And I believe there's a conflict of interest here. I don't feel that it would benefit us to have you on this case, because my husband went after his first wife for parental alienation, and he's already told me and threatened me that he's going to go after me for parental alienation if I don't give him 50-50 custody. And I was never opposed to 50-50, but Emily wouldn't go. And so I said to him, I don't feel comfortable with you. I'm not going to stipulate to you. Oh my gosh, you would have thought these men having their little tantrums in court. She won't sign to stipulate this. I said, listen, I'm all for a 730 evaluator, just not this one. I'm not doing it. And if I stipulate to him, I want it to be where if I see that it's going in a direction that is biased and we're not playing by the rules, I will have him yanked. Oh, no problem. Of course, there was fine print. I signed him because my attorney said, you don't want to appear to be difficult, Donna. Just sign it. And I said, listen, this is my kid at the end of the day. It's not your kid. You get to go home to your kids. This is my life. I like that everyone always wants to recommend stuff, but ultimately it's my life and I have the right to fight for what I believe is fair, equitable, and safe for my kids. That's my right. Why do we even bother hiring attorneys and going through this process if that's not the case? That's our right. So he said, Donna, just sign it. I said, fine. Signed it. I knew I shouldn't have signed it. Went in, I didn't audio tape the first one. And I took notes and I basically put him on notice. I said, just so you know, I'm not happy with this decision. I don't care if it makes me look uncooperative. This is my children's life. If at all, at any point, you become biased in this and you don't report properly, I'll have you yanked. Oh, absolutely no problem, Donna. Here, no big deal. So we go forward. I start audio taping everything because at this point I'm like, this looks corrupt as hell, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. This is not good. So I start taping him, and he starts writing these reports. But he's only met with Emily 2 times for 10 minutes. And I'm like, he's got a report on parent alienation already. 2 10-minute sessions.
After she's brainwashed.
Right? 2 10-minute sessions. So go forward. He writes up his eval. They have me take her to another doctor, Dr. Budner, and they're all part of it. And he said, Emily was like, I don't want to go in there. I have had it with this. And I laughed and I said, Emily, you got to go in there. You have to go in there. I have about had it. I'm missing this. And I'm like, just go into the meeting. So she goes in with Dr. Budner. I already had a 45-minute meeting with them. Seemed really nice. And I thought, this is good. These guys are good. I drank the Kool-Aid. She goes in there. She comes back out. And he has me come in. And he's like, oh, she's so delightful. I said, yeah, I love her to death. She's great. We get in the car. Emily is sitting back there and I'm watching her and she's just looking around. I said, so how'd that go? Are you comfortable with everything that happened? She goes, I was just sitting here. I was pausing for a minute before I was going to tell you something. I said, oh, okay. She goes, but he's weird. I said, he's weird? She was like, yeah, you know what he was trying to do? I said, no, I don't. I wasn't in there. What's wrong? And she said, he kept asking me these weird questions. I said, like what? And she's like he would try to preface the question like this, Mom. Do you ever feel like there's something might be crawling on your skin, but it's really not there? She's like, you mean like a hair that's fallen out of your head, but you can't find it? It's on your arm, it's there, but it's not, you can't see it. He goes, no, like there's actually like stuff on you, crawling on you. She goes, like bugs? And I'm sitting, I couldn't help it. I started laughing. I said, what do you think he was trying to get at? She goes, I think he thinks I'm crazy. He thinks I'm crazy. And I said, well, you're not crazy. She goes, that's what he was getting at. I said, why do you think that? I said, who says that to a kid, Mom? Who says, do you think there's something crawling on you, but it's not there? And then I come up with the idea of maybe it's a hair that's fallen out of my head that's on my arm somewhere. I'm trying to brush it off, but I can't see it. And I start laughing. I'm like, boy, she's so smart. So we go, that was an MD. And he did what I guess they call a psychological evaluation. Didn't know that. So he takes that and he says to me, oh, Mrs. McCracken Dobson, I need you to sign off on this. I said, I'm not signing anything. He says, why not? I said, because I don't sign anything I don't read, and I've got to take it to my attorney. and I got to make sure what it is. Well, it's just releasing the 7:30 evaluation. I said, I don't think that it is good for you to have that. You need to make your own mind up about what you think is going on. You don't need the 7:30 evaluation. That's going to cloud your judgment. I know what it says in it. You do your job. You let Dr. Bussey do his job. I really would prefer, strongly urging you to sign this. I said, I'm telling you, I'm not signing it. We have to go back to court, of course. And they say you need to sign this. So basically, I was bullied into signing it, releasing the 7:30 evaluation. He reads it, and he's like, oh, yeah, I agree with Dr. Bussey. She's severely alienated.
So that's another 10 minutes evaluation. So
it's just ridiculous. So then they decide in court, we need a court master. And I'm like, what is with all these doctors? Now, mind you, they're $10,000 retainers.
What's a court master?
So a court master is higher than a judge. He can actually stipulate to the judge and say, you need to take they knew what they were doing. They were placing people in place, just like when you're playing chess, you know what your strongest piece is. The strongest piece on the board for them was Dr. Jorge Galindo. He's a court master. And what he does is he's kind of, he takes all the reports in, he assesses everything, and he says, you know what, based on this, a 7:30 evaluator can't take custody away, but a court master can. So they're placing all their pieces. So I go to see Dr. Jorge Galindo. My ex has already gone to see him. He's gone. It's weird. My ex-husband gets to see each doctor first. It's great. I go to see him, and he says, well, I've already seen your ex-husband twice. And I said, well, I just got the message about seeing you. This is my first time. He's like, well, why don't you? And by the way, I'm audio taping all of these. I have audio tape on all these doctors, not knowing really that it's going to help me or not help me. But I'm afraid at this point they're going to falsely report for some reason, right? So I audio it. And basically, he says, it's my job to get you guys to really get her to go with them. I said, well, I've already been doing that. But he doesn't even request time. And he gets mad that she goes on these dinners with them and she won't talk to him. But she's going. Well, she needs to interact. I said, look, if you can get her to interact, good for you.
How are you supposed to force that when you're not even around? I mean, like,
you know, it is what it is. So I got her to go. There's so much
ridiculous.
There. Yeah, it is. So basically, he meets with me once. He says, your husband's already come in twice. You can have another session, or can we just move on? And I said, but why does he get to have 2 times? You know, I'm like a 12-year-old in a candy store. How come he gets 2? I only get 1. But that was the precedence for the whole entire case. He got whatever. And I kept thinking to myself, am I out of my mind here? I'm watching this all unfold, and it's a scary nightmare. Because someone would say to me, tell me your story. I said, you mean my nightmare? It's a nightmare I would never wish on. I wouldn't even wish this on my husband. As much as he's put me through, I would never say, I want you to go through this. It's horrific. So the court master meets with me once and says, we need to meet with you and Rob together. I said, fine, whatever. We get in there. He becomes argumentative. And I said, look, I don't want to argue with you. I'm trying to get her to go with you. Wouldn't you think it would be better, instead of taking her twice a week, that you took her every other day? I'm sitting there trying to facilitate this relationship. Just like the psychologist, Dr. Galindo, he doesn't even say, yeah, Rob, that's a good idea. They don't say it. It's almost like they already know what their agenda is, and it doesn't matter. They're just going through the motions of it all. And
yes.
All my girlfriends kept saying to me, this doesn't make sense. I said, put a comma at the bottom of that sentence and then put, because it's corrupt. And there you'll say, it doesn't make sense because it's corrupt.
All our stories are the same. And I actually wrote a piece about why it's happening, how it's happening, and your story confirms it again. It is a script.
Yep.
If you go to my website, freejasmine.com, and you click here on the reflection, You can see my research on this, on exactly what you're sharing, the nonsense about the parental alienation that's used against us as soon as we try to protect our children from abusive fathers, the rate at which it happens, the reason why it is happening, how it unfolds, who is all connected in this. And you can click on these links here. They'll take you to all the numbers, all the research. This is not just me saying this. This is all backed up with academic research. This has all been proven. I mean, even Dr. Saunders from the Department of Justice is on our side and confirming everything we're saying. Go ahead, for anyone who's new to this information, you can go through this and see how it's all connected. This entire reunification therapy nonsense, the foster care system, CPS, the pedophile mafia, the mental health industry, the family court corruption. It is all tied together. Go ahead and look at my research, Family Court Gate. That's what this is. There's a bunch of solutions I'm giving here, but really this whole family court racket needs to be abolished as far as I'm concerned. For anyone who's still doubting after reading that, they can click on Mommy Side, which will take you to cases that I found that are currently public. And it's a database of moms like you and me that have gone through this exact same thing. And the people that are inflicting this on you and on me and on all these other moms, they know it. It's a script, exactly what you're saying. They already know what they're going to do. You can click on all these links. These are all mothers that have their story public somewhere, either in newspaper, on YouTube, or petition. And, you know, this is endless. And if you actually go and read these, you'll see that all our stories are the same. I mean, tell me that that's not a script, you know? Yeah, it's an industry. It's an industry.
It really is. And I consider it a tragedy, really, for an industry to be making money off of destroying, ultimately, children who happen to be even younger than Emily and don't know if their mom really cares. It's a tragedy because those kids are scarred for life, and they grow up and they have issues and they have problems, psychological problems, all kinds of problems if they're younger. Because I was told that once they're about 12 or 13, you know, their brains are fully developed. You can't brainwash a kid. But if it's the unfortunate fact that they're younger children, my gosh, I feel so sorry for. The only thing that grounds me with this is I know my daughter knows this is all lies. She knows I'm fighting. She knows. But then there are the kids that are younger that don't know and are being brainwashed and told your mom's bad, your dad's bad, whatever it may be. It's more prevalent with women, I believe, but I could be wrong. But the poor child, ultimately, the child is being railroaded in all of this, and they don't have a voice, and they're supposed to. And it doesn't make any sense to me that the government or any, you know, family law wants to do this to children. Like, they're part of our future. They're innocent, and it's heartbreaking. I love kids, and I've always been around kids, and Emily's friends are really, really subjected to this. They are heartbroken. She has a great support system that she's cut off from. And when I stopped going around to see the kids, because it's just so heartbreaking, but when I do see them, they hug me so tight and they say, I don't understand. And you know what do you want to say to them? I'm sorry. You know, I'm fighting so hard to get this turned around. Some kids get it. They're highly intelligent and they get it. Some are so naive and innocent that they don't understand. And they know you're a good person. They
I
know.
wrote this piece for especially for children like that, for the children who have been stolen, or for their friends, for their cousins. Message for the stolen kids. It's on my website, Free Jasmine, spelled in the Dutch spelling of her name, and it's right here under help. And it's also currently the last post that I put out. So if you're a child and you're watching this, or Emily, if you find the link to this interview and you're watching your mom tell the story, then please go to this website and read this message for the stolen kids. Now, Emily is really super smart, so she probably already gets this, but there's a lot of information in here, and it's written for children. It's written in children's language, so you can understand why your father is doing this, and why everybody is helping him, and why the system is supporting your father in this. Even though you don't want to be with him and you might just want to be with your mom. It explains what's going on, why it's going on, and what you can do as well. And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom of this long story, right? So here you have, why is your dad doing this? Explain this. And then it gives you some tips on what you can do about it. And the best thing, of course, is to try and find an adult who you can really trust, and try to share what's going on at home to try and get help. And that's a difficult thing, because we already talked about how all these agencies are colluding together in that good old boys network, and CPS is often part of that as well. So these kids are in a really difficult situation. Some of these kids are now adults, and they're writing books about what's being done to them, and how it's affected their lives. This is one of those books, Don't Hug Your Mother, by Brandon Byrne. I interviewed him on this show as well. And this is, a good show for the kids to watch, so they know that they're not alone. And I also included a tutorial for children to get in touch with their moms. If you are currently with your dad and you're not allowed to have any contact with your mom, or you're only allowed supervised contact and you're only allowed to talk about the weather, then here is the How to Contact Your Mom guide, which shows you how to set up an email account that cannot be hacked or tracked, so you can email with your mom and really share what you're actually feeling and thinking and what you want. Because these are basically hostage situations that should never, ever be happening to any child.
No.
And here's a bunch of kids who went on to YouTube and shared their stories. And these are pleas for help. So, if you are a child and you're watching this, be careful doing that, of course. But I put these up here for you to watch. So you know that you're not alone. There are many, many children in this situation. As a matter of fact, there are millions of you. And we're trying to fix it, of course. So this page is particularly for the kids, so they understand what's happening, why it's happening, and this should hopefully make a dent in this brainwashing, these deprogramming, institutions run by corrupt people without a license, without any certification, going in there and brainwashing our kids to teach them to reject their loving mothers.
Right. I mean, that in itself is criminal. It really is. It's hard to wrap your mind around it, and I always say to my psychologist, I didn't think he was always this bad of a person. And she said, Donna, he was. He just didn't get to that point until you left him. And when you left him, that made him very upset. And he threatened you because he couldn't control you. And then at that point, he still couldn't control you. He's still trying to control me by throwing me in jail. He slapped me with the contempt charges. It's 46 counts of contempt, mind you. I had to show up in criminal court. It's a criminal proceeding. I've never.
So what happened with this now? But let's go back to where we were to not jump around too much in the story. So
where were we?
Well, I mean, you're at the point now that you were describing that you barely have any contact with Emily. Emily has been with her father, right?
For a year and 42 days. I've only had one time contact with her, and she decided to call me for 50 minutes, which was probably the best 50 minutes of my life. Aww. And she took a chance. She went with a girlfriend. She was allowed to go with a girlfriend to the movies, and they skipped the movie, and she sat in a parking garage and talked to me. They followed her. They had her bugged. They knew she was doing it. They knew she'd probably do it. They found out immediately. He showed up at a Starbucks shortly after she got out of the car in the movies with a relative. And she said, they were following me. I said, because she said, Mommy, I didn't tell them that I talked to you. And I said, I know that, Emily, but they usually bug you, or they will follow you to make sure that you're not trying to reach out when it's your first outing with a friend. And I think that they knew that they couldn't really trust this friend because I had known the mom. I was one of the carpooling moms at this private school, and she loved me and didn't understand why I couldn't see my child. And she knew immediately. She said, this is corrupt. He bought a verdict. And I said, yeah. She said, I will do whatever I can. This was afterwards, to make sure that she knows that you love her. And I said, well, don't tell her anything, because now I'm being slapped with contempt charges. He actually went after the mother and told her that we will get your child thrown out of this charter school that she's in with Emily now if your daughter talks to her. The principal saw her pass a note to Emily and brought her into the principal's office and said, we will throw you out of this school. And it's a really hard school to get into. You have to have straight A's, and it's a charter school. And, that would have ruined her future. And so she's like, okay. So she can't talk to her friend anymore. Emily has even though they go to the same school, they're not allowed to talk. So they told her, they would file, they'd call the police on her and they'd press charges against her. So they, of course, got all their paperwork documented that she called me. This is the best part. She called me. I didn't even know she was going to call me. This is the best part. So am I really in civil contempt? I didn't break the court order. She did, but she doesn't have a court order that says that she can't contact me. I do. So she reached out to me. My attorney said, why did you answer the phone? I said, well, first of all, I didn't know the number, right? You answer the phone when it rings.
Why did you answer the phone? As if that's a criminal act. Your daughter calls you to say, Mom, I love you. And that's everyone's on top of it. Like, how come you answered the phone? Like, it's like the worst thing you could ever do is talk to your child.
Right. And I told them, I said, I know you're messing with me right now. I said, listen to me. You have 2 daughters. You're telling me if your wife didn't pull this shenanigan off like my husband did, you wouldn't answer the phone when the first thing out of their mouth was, hi, Mommy, I love you and I miss you, but I feel so abandoned. You're going to say, Emily, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you. I have a court order. I got to go and hang up on your kid. You're a liar. There's no way. It had already been, a long time, 10 months at that point that I hadn't seen her. Of course, I'm going to say, once I say hello and I know it's her, I'm going to talk to her. So I talked to her and she's just telling me everything. And I said, you need to stay strong. You need to know that I'm fighting for you. She's like, Daddy said, you put the house up for sale and you left. And I said, no, Bug, I've lived there 15 and a half years. I did not put the house up for sale. Let me tell you. And at this point, I thought, she already knows everything. Is this going to be alienating behavior? I'm going to tell her the truth. I said, you know what, Emily, I did not move away and sell the house. Your father illegally not only had the Orange County Sheriff show up, I'm in my pajamas. I'm literally getting into the shower. It's almost a 48,000 square foot home. It's big. I hear that my back door has been breached and my alarm goes off. I have cameras and alarms. I'm scurrying upstairs in pajamas. And it's Orange County Sheriff saying, you have 20 to 30 minutes to get out of this house or we're arresting you and your son. I'm like, you've got the wrong house. No, are you Donna McCracken Dobson? Yeah. No, you, here's the order. I said, I never got that order. I've never gotten that order. Of course, the judge filed something and put it into Superior Court stating that he gave me a 60-day notice. What mother in their right mind has a 60-day order and doesn't move their stuff out? Why would you leave your stuff there? Why would you not be prepared? You would be. I would be. Anybody that knows me knows I wouldn't leave my stuff behind. I'm literally in my pajamas. I'm like, hold on, wait, let me call my attorney. Of course, my attorney, not very professional of him, just listen to them, whatever. I said, I'm in my pajamas. Just listen to them. I'm like, fine, whatever. Of course, there you go again. Let's just all cooperate because there's policemen saying they have an order. Whether it's real or not, you cooperate, you follow the rules. So he's yelling at me from upstairs. Our bedrooms happen to be below. I'm trying to get my son, he's scared out of his mind. We never have our door broken down by the police officers. I'm trying to get him to focus on grabbing clothes and putting them in a bag, an overnight bag really quick. We grabbed 3 sets of clothes each, thinking I'm going to be back in my house. No, I don't. I still to this day don't have any of my belongings. I literally am ushered out in my pajamas with my ex-husband coming up the hill waving at me, like with his girlfriend, like, ha, gotcha again. My dogs are left there, my cat, my belongings, everything. I get nothing. He takes my name off of 3 homes, off the title, illegally. I literally got 0. I didn't even get my underwear. I tell people this all the time. I don't even have my underwear. I had to start all over again. He still has my stuff. It's in a container, storage container, because he owns a company at his work with all my stuff, and my belongings are in that. He's had it since, that was on March 31st, 2015. I still don't have them. He charged me $11,000 to store it in one of our own containers that we own, the company. I still don't have my things. I don't have pictures. I don't have, right? That's the greatest picture. I don't have anything, but, mainly I don't have my daughter. I had to start all over. And so fast forward, I don't get any of my things. I'm told I can go back and get some things, but I only have 3 hours to get my things out of a place that you've been in for 15 years. And an incident happens at the house. I've videotaped it. I have not released that, what happens that day, but I literally lost it when I was in the house, because I have this table in there that's a beautiful table, and they had all their stuff set up on it, and I lost it, because everyone knows me that you just don't put stuff on that table. It's the good table, right? And I literally lost it, and they threw me out of the house. But at that point, you can only take so much of the crookedness and the corruptness, and your mind just finally blows a gasket. You lose it. And if that was the worst thing that I did in this whole entire thing, there are other people that wouldn't have been able to hold it together that long, to behave badly. My attorney said, well, because you had that episode in there, now you can't have your stuff.
Oh, it's all your fault, of course.
Yeah. And I said, okay, well, if you want to believe that in your mind so you can sleep at night, good for you. I said,
really?
Yeah. I said, but it is what it is. It's another form of control.
It's vengeful father syndrome is what we call it amongst our protective mothers, the warriors out there. The vengeful father syndrome, forcibly taking a mother's children and then controlling her emotionally by withholding contact, must be publicly recognized as one of the greatest forms of misuse of the American justice system, and one of the greatest hidden vehicles for widespread socially approved physical and emotional abuse and control. And then we add on to that all of us are economically, completely, financially destitute as a result of this torture.
I am.
So
it's sad.
We end up losing everything. It's not just the kids, it's the house, it's the money.
It's everything. I'll tell you, our net worth is on the low end of 35 million. I got none of that. My child support was supposed to be $50,000 a month. Now, to a lot of people, that is like obscene amount. But you have to remember, we are living a different standard of life. We're millionaires, and we had a status quo that was supposed to be kept. My alimony was supposed to be $250,000 based on what he submitted, not what I got, what paperwork I had to submit, because I had nothing to submit. I didn't work the whole time we were married. He didn't want me to work, another form of control. But I got none of that. The judge decided in a regular court, maybe he's to say would it happen. I don't think it is as likely in a superior court. That's why he made me go to private mediation. It was easier to control. You look at a net worth of $35 million. We have yachts. I had, when he left me, three, this is disgusting, it is what it is, but I had 3 Mercedes, a Harley, and a Porsche in my garage. That was our lifestyle. We had 2 yachts. We had 3 homes, one in Canada and Ontario. He has destroyed, not that that's important, but it's important to be able to have assets to sell, to be able to continue to fight. My alimony isn't, I got alimony for 2 years.